Yeah, it's like you said, comics take a lot of time and a lot longer than people think. Like
Hmm.
we call them this. We did the Kickstarter like through February. Like I think it was
Hmm.
like in halfway through January through February. We got the books out now and we could ship it out. It's going to be shipped out by this month to everyone.
Nice.
But we've been sitting on these comics, this comic idea since like almost 2 years ago. Like this was like just us talking about it and then kind of working on some concept art. And then I worked on the script and then he worked on the art. We took a while to find a colorist and then we found a letterer. And it just, in a perfect world, because it was like monsters and cryptids, were like, let's do it at Halloween. It's like,
Yeah.
but it just, the timeline didn't work out.
Hmm.
So like people look at it and think like, oh, you just made this comic since January and now it's coming out in May. That's really fast. It's like, no, we've been sitting on this for a little while.
Dude, yeah, oh man, it comes down to that with everything too.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been promoting Teenage Babylon for 2 years before I even had an artist for it. I've been saying it's a
Yeah.
cosmic punk rock love story so that people like know about it. So I've been marketing this book before it was even a book. But
Yeah.
now that it's becoming a book, it's like, well, you all know it. Y'all like know
Yeah.
Teenage Babylon. Like I've been promoting, and that's what I do with the anthologies. Like I do
Yeah.
stories related to my main story to like
Hmm.
just keep that marketing aspect to be like, oh, they'll keep
Yeah.
on seeing this name and they'll keep on connecting the dots and maybe even be more interested. But dude, it's taken, I mean, the punk
It's
anthology came
forever.
out last May, and I
Yep.
used that as a launching point to like announce Teenage Babylon and to ride off the success of the punk anthology to build an
Hmm.
audience. And it's like, okay, so now like it's a year later, and now I'm barely getting the ash can of Teenage Babylon when I thought
Yeah.
I'd have a first issue by now. When it's like, no, I'm probably not gonna have a first issue until like later this year, if not
Yeah.
early next year, you know? It's a long pull, but I mean, it's just, I mean, unless you make comics, then you
Yeah.
really don't understand like what goes into it because
Even
your
even making ash
research.
cans take
Oh yeah.
forever too. And they're not as long as certain like I don't know how long Teenage Babylon is going to be,
Um,
but like
like this one, dude, nice little, cool little
mhm.
small floppy. It's
Yeah.
maybe like 12 pages, I want to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a lot already on there.
Yeah, like, and in general, like just black and white too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it really cool, but like you could tell by just how much ink is on this page, how
Mhm.
much Christian poured into every single panel, and people forget that. Like, you know,
Yeah.
a lot goes into just. Oh, it's a cuss word, but I shouldn't show that. But
Um,
Apollo ads.
that's fine.
Um, but yeah, it's like one of those things. It's like this took almost like 6 months, 8 months to make, but it
Yeah.
all came like I was working on this 2 years ago practically, you know?
Mhm.
Um, but
It,
I actually thought of the idea maybe 5 years ago and just
yeah.
had to ride through it and get to this point where I'm finally like making something out of it. Because collaborating even then, I mean, you're
Mhm.
working on different schedules, you're working on finding that collaborator and then adding more people to the group or having that one collaborator you work with do all the coloring, lettering, and all that stuff. That's
Yeah.
so much work because unless you're making it, you don't realize how hard it is to draw and write and letter and color.
Yeah, I whenever I tell people about like future projects or ideas I have, I always try to make sure that when I tell people I'm like, this is something I'm working on. I can't guarantee it's going to come out or anytime soon or when, but I like telling people certain ideas that I have and then like I say this with like a grain of salt
Mhm.
because sometimes when I tell people like an idea I have, they're like, "Oh, that's cool. It'd be like maybe you could do something like that." Every once in a while, it's a cool idea, but then every once in a while, I'll get somebody who's like, "Yeah, you should do it like Invincible." Whenever like they just get all bloody and stuff like that, I'm like, "All right, well, sure. If
Yeah.
you'll buy it in the future, I'll make it like Invincible, maybe."
Bring your comic books to life and print your comics with comic